the show today, Bill. How are things?
Things are great.
Right
Alan,
on.
thanks for having me. I'm excited to share what I can.
Outstanding. I'm really excited to have you on the show because I think there's so much work that to be done here, especially in the work or in the field with men and helping us be able to unlock some of these past traumas. And so I want to start off by asking you about, I was reading about some of your stuff and you had some pretty traumatic childhood. And so I was wondering if you'd be willing to share some of that story with us today and how it led you onto your healing path to what you're doing today.
Sure. I mean, the journey that I've been on has been one of lifelong healing. Excuse me. And, as a child, I was about 7 years old. My brother and I used to fight all the time. And my mother would say, wait till your father gets home. And, when my father got home, he did what his father did. He took us upstairs, pulled down our pants and whipped us with a belt. And I didn't realize how traumatized I was by that. I had welts on the back of my legs, and if he was doing it today, he'd be in jail for child abuse. But, back then it was just the way it was done. And so I lost all sense of trust in the world, abandonment. I was feeling like, if I was being beaten by somebody who's supposed to love me, how worthy can I be? And I really had and I shut out most of the trauma for a good part of my life. And in in the healing process, I had 20 years of modern psychoanalysis, and it helped me uncover a lot of the, unconscious beliefs and unconscious stories. But it didn't heal it. It made me more aware of it, but it just say, okay, so now that's your characterological structure. That's how you are. But it didn't really change it. And I did about 8 years of Abraham Hicks, and Abraham would up the emotional scale with, that process, and that helped some. And I was still looking. So I read a book by Bruce Lipton called Biology of Belief. And he talks about PSYCH-K in that book. And so I was piqued with that, and I, drank it in. And then I read his next book called The Honeymoon Effect. And he talked about how he used PSYCH-K to heal his own life and his own relationships. And I said, this sounds too good to be true. I was highly skeptical. It took me a year to do the research and did everything, read everything I could. There's like 4 books out on it, and watched YouTube videos. Turns out that the PSYCH-K doesn't tell you how they do it. They just tell you what they do and the benefits of it. So finally, in August of, I think 2018, maybe 2017, I hired a PSYCH-K facilitator. She was on the phone in Colorado. I was in my living room in New York. And in one 15-minute session, she was able to transform the trauma of me being beaten as a child. Didn't change what happened, but it morphed the negative energy into a cartoon. I was actually in my mind turning it into it turned into a black and white Steamboat Willie cartoon, and then a Buster Keaton movie. And it was just a comedy. All the negative energy and the fear was gone. So I found myself, feeling very differently, a little safer in the world than I had been. And, in the next month I was in a PSYCH-K basic workshop. I said, I need more of this, and then in the next month I was in an advanced workshop, and I've taken over 10 PSYCH-K workshops. And so really it was for my own personal healing, but now I'm at the point where I want to pay it forward. I've done a lot of work on self-esteem, feeling good about myself, not feeling as threatened by the world, but when you're beaten like that, you never really trust. You're always looking over your shoulder and waiting for the next foot to fall. And I've been able to heal a lot of that. So, so that's kind of my story. And, there's one of the things that I found that what nothing else really touched was the complex PTSD that a lot of us experience, and we don't even realize it. And the idea is that we're out of touch with our emotions. And so here's a tool that works energetically. It basically, you bypass the conscious mind and you basically communicate with the subconscious. It's all permission based, meaning that I'm not doing anything with anyone. I'm just holding an energetic space. And within that space, we get permission from their superconscious mind, or some people call it God, some people call it the higher self, depending on what your beliefs are. But the higher self of you, we get permission from that it's safe and appropriate to make this change. Because sometimes you are the way you are for good reasons, and you don't want to change that. But if God thinks it's okay to change, then we go to the next step, which is ask your subconscious, is it ready, willing, and able to make the changes? And if we get positive result, a positive answer to that, then we move forward with what we call the PSYCH-K balances. There's about 11 different transformation processes. We call them balances, because really what we're doing is balancing the left and right brain electronically, physically, but also energetically. So that's the process. And one of the questions that I always ask, well, how can you communicate with the subconscious? It doesn't speak English, you know, and by definition, it's subconscious. So how do you know you're talking to it? Well, this is where muscle testing comes in. It's interesting. So with muscle testing, the energy in your body about if you make a statement that I am safe, and you muscle test that, and you believe that at a subconscious level, it will test strong. If you make that same statement and your subconscious doesn't believe it, it has a different energy around it, it will test weak. So there's a process for establishing what in your body represents a strong response and what represents a weak response. So when we make statements, we muscle test the statements to see whether your subconscious already believes it. If it does, there's no work to be done because you already believe it.
That's
If
cool.
you make a statement that your subconscious doesn't believe, then that's when the PSYCH-K processes can help.
That makes complete sense, buddy.
Yeah,
That's great.